boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What is MVP's response to Ashton Silva's seething comments yesterday? Most Valuable Promotions is proud to have worked with Ashton H2O Silva during the early stages of both his career and our company's evolution. To clarify, Ashton was never signed under any promotional agreement with MVP, nor was there ever an exclusive arrangement in place. Our previous relationship was advisory in nature, and Ashton on multiple occasions pursued opportunities with other boxing organizations. Our paths have since gone in different directions. We remain fans of Ashton.
Fans from afar.
He is a gifted young athlete with a bright future ahead, and we'll be rooting for him as he continues his journey in the sport. They'll be rooting for him, but they won't be paying. They won't be paying for him. If they really were fans of Ashton, and they really believed that he had a bright future, then they would make an investment.
I don't blame them, by the way. A promotional outfit cannot afford to accommodate any and every fighter that has a decent human interest story and big dreams. At the end of the day, this is a business. They've got to do what's right for them.
I don't expect the fighters to like that, but the fighters themselves don't always hold up their end of the bargain. They don't always deliver. To that, Ashton Silva replied, I saw MVP's statement. Appreciate the recognition, but let's be real. That statement was misleading. I was the first male boxer signed to MVP, helped build the brand from day one when they were just advisors, not promoters. I didn't pursue other promoters. I was approached and brought it back to the team like a pro. I stayed loyal, even when better offers came in. After my first loss, I was promised a rematch and more. Then MVP became a full promo company out of nowhere. I asked for a meeting about my future, never got it. What I did get was a release. No convo, no offer, just a release. I've always kept it honest and respectful. If that rubbed people the wrong way, that's not on me. Wishing them the best, but the full story matters. I'm focused on what's next. He expected better, Ashton Silva. That's what it is. And to some degree, I don't blame him.
But I definitely don't blame them for doing what's right for them. There's no easy way to cut a fighter loose. There's no easy way to say, it's about time we go our separate ways.
Because of what that entails, because of what that means, that if they really believed in you, and they really had faith that you could go all the way, then they'd still be on board. The fact that they're not communicates the opposite, but they're entitled to their opinions.
It's a business, not the Salvation Army. This is business, not charity.
This is boxing. It's for that reason that MVP will be promoting Lucas Body's next fight later on this month, on the 23rd. If you're Ashton Silva, I know how that looks, I know that stings, but business is business. Lucas Body, he beat you. And if he doesn't want to give you a rematch, they can't force him, and at the same time, they can't break the bank trying to get you that rematch. That's irresponsible.
That if what it's gonna take for Lucas to give you a rematch is a giant purse, the way they gotta overpay that guy, yeah, it's not worth it.
Ashton Silva doesn't want to hear that, but Ashton Silva was not yet in a place to where he's a main event guy and he sells a bunch of tickets to where investing in a rematch, doing so generously, would be worth it for MVP. At the end of the day,
it's a business.
The fighters understand that. Least of all, MVP didn't do anything to Ashton Silva that Matchroom didn't do to Nina Hughes and Ebony Bridges.
Zile Zhang.
They didn't do anything to him that Top Rank didn't do to Elvis Rodriguez or Josue Vargas.
It's necessary. You gotta thin out the herd to make way for new talent and fresh faces. They just signed U.S. Olympian Jamal Harvey. And how are they supposed to be able to do this if they don't shed the excess? To make way for new talent,
did what they had to do. I don't expect Ashton Silva to be happy about it, but want doesn't always get. Men's super lightweight news per Chava ESPN, the panoramic view of Subriel Matias. He wants a fight with Teofimo Lopez. He's going to fight Dalton Smith. Alberto Puello is asking for a rematch, and Pitbull Cruz wishes to dethrone him as champion. And do you see how much more interesting the division gets when it's an action guy with a title as opposed to a cerebral fighter, a thinking man's fighter like an Alberto Puello?
Now, in terms of profile, two of these fights are bigger than the other two. A fight with Teofimo Lopez would have the most profile. The second would have to be Isaac Cruz. He's more well-known than, say, Dalton Smith or Alberto Puello.
That's in terms of profile. Those would be the two biggest. In terms of aesthetic quality, entertainment value, it's a little different.
Out of these four fights, the one that would yield the most pleasing aesthetic would have to be an Isaac Cruz fight, because Isaac is a pressure guy, and so is Subriel. Neither one is all that big on defense. They're not going to spend all night skating around each other, staring at each other from across the ring. They're going to let them go.
What would be another entry into the Puerto Rico versus Mexico rivalry. So the most entertaining fight, I think, would be the Isaac Cruz fight. The second most entertaining would be the Teofimo Lopez fight. Pressure guy versus boxer puncher. To where, irrespective of who wins, you're going to get an entertaining fight, because if nothing else, Subriel is going to force Teofimo to fight. He's going to force him to respond, for better or worse, and Teofimo is going to have to. Otherwise, he's going to get run over. Teofimo hasn't always been involved in the most entertaining fights. I mean, the Sandor Martin fight, that was kind of a snoozer. The Jermaine Ortiz fight, that one was too. And the fight that he just had with Arnold Barboza, even though he won, it wasn't all that entertaining to watch. I mean, I wouldn't describe it as being fireworks.
But him and Subriel, that would be a barn burner, because if nothing else, you know what Subriel's gonna do. You know what kind of fight he's gonna fight, and he's gonna put Teofimo in a position where he has to fight, where he has to respond, so it won't be boring. The second most entertaining fight would have to be the fight with Lopez. The third would have to be the fight with Dalton Smith.
Dalton Smith is a puncher. Dalton Smith is an action guy. And we know that Subriel is an action guy. And the added intrigue of Dalton Smith stepping up in class. He's unbeaten, at least for now. Does he have what it takes to stay that way? Or would Subriel prove to be too much?
That makes for the third most entertaining fight on the list. Alberto Puello, that would be the fourth. We already saw it, and it was all right. I don't got a hankering, though, to see it again. Alberto needs to hit the bricks.
He wants a rematch, but I'd prefer that he doesn't get it. We don't need to see that again.
Now, how many of these fights does Subriel actually win?
From most winnable to least winnable, I'd have to say that the most winnable fight of the four has to be the Isaac Cruz fight. That's a big train, little train situation. Isaac Cruz may be a pressure guy like Subriel is a pressure guy, but he's just a blown-up 135-pounder. He doesn't have the physical dimensions of a junior welterweight, so that's the most winnable fight, I think. I think in the gunfight, Subriel's got the bigger guns. The second most winnable fight,
Dalton Smith.
it's all relative, you understand? Most to least winnable doesn't mean easy. Dalton Smith actually has the right style for the job, and he can punch, but he's not that experienced.
An Isaac Cruz fight is more winnable than a Dalton Smith fight, and a Dalton Smith fight is more winnable
Than Puello.
than an Alberto Puello rematch.
If you saw their initial meeting, you'll know that Subriel had to work hard to get that win. It wasn't easy, it was close in spots, and it's kind of tight, and there's even an argument that maybe Alberto did enough. That it could have swung either way, and that in a rematch, you know, rematches are often won by the fighter who can change, by the fighter who can adapt, irrespective of how the first one went. Alberto is the cerebral fighter here. He's likelier to change his approach than Subriel. So Isaac is more beatable than Dalton Smith. Dalton Smith is more beatable than Alberto in a rematch.
And Alberto is more beatable than Teofimo Lopez. I think of the Teofimo Lopez fight as a bona fide pick'em fight. A 50-50 fight where, even though one guy has the right style for the job, he may not have the right physicality. He may not be durable enough or busy enough within a round to keep this guy off.
We know who has the better resume. Teofimo. Big wins over then-champion Richard Comey, Vasily Lomachenko, Tosh Jailer. He's got the better resume.
But there's also more to boxing than what you see on paper. You will notice that Teofimo's not the puncher at 140 that he was at 135. He doesn't knock people out the way he used to.
Does he knock Subriel Matias out? I don't know. He's got the right style to deliver those punches, but I don't know that he cracks hard enough to get this guy's respect, to keep him honest, and to keep him off. That's what makes that a 50-50 fight. Teofimo's got the right style for the job, but he's not that big at 140, doesn't crack that hard. That's what makes that the least winnable fight of the four.
Now, how many of these fights do you actually expect to see Subriel in?
At minimum, I expect to see him in the Dalton Smith fight because Dalton Smith is his mandatory challenger. Alberto is pushing for a rematch at a time where Subriel has a mandatory to satisfy. There's no money in a rematch.
I don't think Turkey wants to pay for that again. He's the one who was pushing for the Dalton Smith fight.
In terms of which one of these fights do I actually expect to see Subriel in, I expect him to fight Dalton Smith. I don't really think Alberto's going to get that rematch.
If he beats Dalton Smith, I could see him fighting Isaac Cruz before I could see him fighting Teofimo. I don't think that fight with Teofimo's going to happen. Teofimo's been at this weight for a bit.
Burning bridges all over the place. His promoter Top Rank is between broadcasters right now. We don't know when they're going to be back. And at the same time, he seems to have rubbed Turkey El Sheikh the wrong way, so I don't expect him to get invited to any more Riyadh Season or Ring Magazine events. The way I see it, the Isaac Cruz fight is a bit likelier to happen than a Lopez fight, a Lopez unification match. And this isn't even counting the other two champions at the weight. WBA champion Gary Antoine Russell and IBF champion Richardson Hitchens.
Do you see how much more interesting the super lightweight division is when it's an action fighter with the WBC title? Nobody cared when Alberto had it. Nobody was checking for him.
But now that Subriel has it, there are any number of great fights to make, and he's the common denominator. You could put him in almost any fight, and it's going to be entertaining whether he wins or he loses. Men's light heavyweight news I'm sure most of you have heard by now. Artur Beterbiev versus Dion Nicholson added to November 22nd Riyadh Season show. Artur Beterbiev is prepared to move on with his career, and from Dimitri Bivol, Boxing Scene has confirmed that the former undisputed light heavyweight champion is set to next face Alabama's Dion Nicholson, originally thought to be Najee Lopez, on November 22nd in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The light heavyweight matchup is part of a stacked Ring 4 show that will feature at least 5 major title fights. News of the bout was first reported by Ring Magazine, who presents the event along with boxing financier Turkey El Sheikh. The night will mark the first time in more than 8 years that Artur Beterbiev, 21-1 with 20 knockouts, will enter the ring without a major title at stake. It comes as an alternative to previously sought plans for a rubber match with Dimitri Bivol, 24-1 with 12 knockouts, the current undisputed light heavyweight champion.
Not so undisputed. David does have the WBC.
Beterbiev and Bivol are responsible for the only defeats on each other's records. Their 2-fight set, which took place in a 4-month span. Beterbiev, a 2-time Olympian for Russia, who lives and trains in Montreal, Canada, won their initial meeting via a majority decision to fully unify all 4 major titles at light heavyweight last October in Riyadh. It ended Bivol's near 7-year WBA reign, while Beterbiev retained the WBC, IBF, and WBO titles. Beterbiev entered their February 22nd rematch as the sport's longest reigning active champion, having held the IBF title since November of 2017. Bivol put an end to that with a majority decision win of his own in their instant classic. However, his stay as newly crowned undisputed champion was brief.
Dimitri was forced to vacate the WBC title when he declined to move forward with an ordered mandatory title defense against David Benavidez, who is now champion.
Fittingly, Benavidez defends the WBC title for the first time against England's Anthony Yarde atop this November 22nd show. As for Bivol, it was theorized at the time that he would move forward with a trilogy clash against Artur, and that it would presumably take place in Russia. However, the bout never came close to materializing. In fact, Beterbiev even called out Bivol for dragging his feet on the matter. A third fight is even less likely to take place anytime soon. As reported by Boxing Scene, Dimitri Bivol was ordered to next face his IBF mandatory Michael Eifert. The deadline has passed for their negotiation period, and Bivol is out of exceptions to use in the absence of a unification match. Meanwhile, Beterbiev will take a stay busy fight as a means to once again lodge a 2-fight campaign on the year, as well as his third straight appearance in Riyadh. It comes against a woefully overmatched foe in Demand Nicholson, 22-1, a stablemate of former WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder. Both fighters are from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and so you can see that Artur is expected to make it through this fight with Nicholson.
So when they say that Artur is ready to move on with his career and move away from Dmitry Bivol and that failed trilogy, they must mean it, because veteran boxing scribe Stephen Kimothy is already hearing some rumblings about a Beterbiev versus Benavidez bout for the spring, assuming both win their upcoming bouts. That Artur's got to beat this Nicholson guy, and David has to beat Anthony Yard.
All of which makes for very bad optics for the unified light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol, who's already being blamed by a lot of people for not only ducking David Benavidez, but now ducking the trilogy with Artur. But is it that way, or are we rushing to assumption? It was confirmed by Turki El Sheikh that not only was he going to finance that trilogy with Artur Beterbiev, but both teams came to him and told him they found a separate financier to do it in Russia. That's not made up. That's from Turkey himself.
And we know who the financier is. The financier was supposed to be Umar Kremlev of the IBA. So when you say that Dmitry skipped out on David to fight Artur again, that's not made up. He was going to do the trilogy. So maybe what happened was he was going to go through with it, but the IBA failed to deliver.
Maybe the hang-up was when the fight was going to happen, because we don't know that the IBA was going to do that before this year was out, or did they mean to do it sometime next year, at which point that's going to take too long. Too long for a 40-year-old Artur Beterbiev, and too long for Dmitry Bivol, who has a mandatory in the queue.
If he doesn't fight that guy, they're going to take his belt like they just took the green one.
There was an image posted of Eddie Hearn, Vadim Kornilov, and Dmitry Bivol yesterday in conference, likely planning his next move, his next fight, which I think is going to be the Michael Eifert fight.
Michael Eifert of Germany, who well over a year ago beat former champion John Pascal in an IBF final eliminator to become the IBF's mandatory challenger. He's been in the queue for a long time, waiting for that opportunity.
And it's overdue. The bottom line is, I don't know that I can blame Dmitry Bivol for all of this just yet, even though some people already are. To the layman, it's going to look like he ducked them both David and Artur.
To the layman and anybody too lazy to do their research, and these days, most people are.
They're going to rush to assumption, and they're going to say that Dmitry ducked David Benavidez, and he's aging Artur Beterbiev out, but having kept up with this story for weeks and months, I don't know for sure that that's the way it is. It looks a lot like he was going to fight Artur again.
Let's see what Eddie Hearn has to say about this.